Hello, everybody, and welcome again to Nerd to the Third Power, your one-stop shop for all things nerdy and awesome. I'm your host and master of ceremonies, Dr. Gonzo. With me, as always, this epic quest of awesomeness is our resident anime gods, the Cat. Cat, how you doing this week?
Ooh, I'm doing okay. I'm like for the first time like all year, I'm super excited because it's almost Halloween.
Yes. You got. Are you giving candy out to trick or treaters this year?
I live in an apartment complex, so we do not get trick or treaters, but we do like decorate your cubicle at work, and kids, the people, coworkers will bring in their kids, so we do cubicle trick or treating, and I've got my office all decked out. Like by that day, it'll be decked out like Hogwarts.
Ooh,
So
take pictures.
I'm really excited. I hope it all looks okay by the end, but I love Halloween. I love that all of the good decor, good expensive decor was on sale, and I bought a bunch of it.
Nice. Yeah, I'm actually going to be giving out candy this year to trick or treaters now that I'm actually living in a house again. So I got myself a big bowl of sweet tarts and mini Tootsie Roll pops. So I'm looking forward to giving candy up to the trick or treaters, assuming there are any. Because like I don't know, maybe is it just me, or is there like less actual like trick or treating going on in the last few years? Because
Maybe you just don't live in the right neighborhood. I don't know. I have no basis of comparison because I've been living in apartments for years now, so we don't get trick or treaters in apartments.
Okay, Mike, what about you? How you doing this week?
I'm alive! Isn't that exciting?
It's
I'm
something.
good. It feels like it's been a while since I've been on this show, but I know it hasn't. So, yeah, I'm actually doing all right. Got good energy. We're talking about Halloween, a favorite holiday for me to put up my fucking Christmas tree. Take that, asshole. And I get to talk horror movies. So I'm excited today.
All right. Well, as I'm sure you've gathered by the energy in the room, this is our Halloween Spooktacular episode. And this year, we're discussing supernatural horror, ghosts and demons and things that go bump in the night. So that's gonna be a lot of fun. But of course, there is procedure to follow. So we're gonna begin as always with Ask a Geek. And most of our questions here are Halloween themed, but we got one here. For Mike. Although I'm going to open this up to myself because it was something I participated in, and it's from our frequent offender Tyler Wheeler, and he asked, "Whatever happened to Last Exit to Ponyville?"
That happened. A collection of things, basically, because I was running the website almost exclusively by myself. It was just hard to get together co-hosts. One of the co-hosts and me had an unfortunate disagreement, and we're not friends anymore, which is just, it's the nature of relationships as you get older. And that's
You're talking about your co-host on Twig, because me and Skyblaze were your co-hosts on Ponyville.
Oh no! Well, I'm talking I'm talking before that. Sorry. Oh, I'm talking way behind the curtain. No. I didn't have time to keep up with the show. Like I watch remarkably little TV. Actually, like if I do, it's rare. I watch maybe 3 hours a week, and that's almost exclusively on Wednesday nights, and that's about it. So now that the series is done, maybe I'll bring it back, but I stopped watching the show back in season 3. So I'm not saying that I'm opposed to it, because it might be interesting now that the series is over to talk about its legacy. I definitely do a sort of post-mortem.
Postmortem?
Yes, that's the word I'm looking for. Fuck you people.
Well, it was kind of just a case of bad timing in general, because as I said, me and Skyblaze were also working with you on Last Exit to Ponyville, and at the time that we were doing that, I had actually just started going back to school for my cybersecurity degree, and I was focusing most of my attention on my studies at the time, so it was really hard for me to keep up with the show because when it was on, I was in one of my classes. And it was one of my longer classes, so usually when I came home that day, I was just like so exhausted, I just went straight to sleep. And then Skyblaze had a bunch of her own shit going on at the time, so it was really just a case of, I think, just bad timing in general.
Yeah, to bring the show back now would be remarkably difficult. I had a hard drive crash last year, and I lost a lot of the Twig elements from about 2010 to 2017. So I'm missing all my pre-produced stuff. I've had to reconstruct everything, almost everything. So bringing it back would be difficult. Like I said, not impossible. Maybe we'll do like a Twig roundtable someday, and we'll talk about the series as it was. We'll talk about the movie, stuff like that. I would be open to doing a commentary on the movie. I actually have the Tales of Equestria role-playing game, so I wouldn't mind doing a review of that at some point.
Yeah. And then Tyler's also got another question about our thoughts on season 9, but I'm not going to answer that one because I haven't actually seen season 9 yet. I still have to burn my way through season 8. So we're going to put that one on the back burner until we can answer it properly. And then let's see, next question here. This one comes from Paul, and it's addressed to all of us. And he's got a question here that it's one that's similar one that I know we've answered before. His question is, I know you've talked in the past about what your least favorite Halloween candy is, but what did you consider your holy grail candy when you were trick-or-treating? So, Kat, let's start with you. What was a Halloween candy that you were always excited to get when you were a kid?
Of course, the holy grail is Reese's peanut butter cups, because that was the parent tax, the one that mom and dad wanted. So that's how you know it was the best. But I've always been like any chocolate, really. I was good for just any Milky Way or Snickers. What I really liked, and this is just a little bit cheesy, and it's proof that I'm just a goddamn softie, but I really liked getting sugar daddies because my dad loved sugar daddies. So it was like me sucking up to my dad by giving him a candy that he liked out of my stash.
Okay. Birdman, what about you? Favorite Halloween candy?
Not so much a candy as an item that would happen, at least where I grew up. When people would give out full-size cans of pop, I'm a soda fiend, or at least I used to be, kind of growing up. But candy-wise, Arrows and Kit Kats were pretty big for me. Although now that I've been exposed to it in the last couple of years, Paydays. Oh my god, I love Paydays. Sweet and salty, so good.
Okay. For me as a child, my favorite Halloween candy was always those fruit flavored Tootsie Rolls. Okay, all right. Yeah, it's my favorite candy, not yours. But like they came in like lemon, strawberry, cherry, lime, all different flavors. The only one I didn't like was vanilla, because I thought it tasted like glue. But
how much glue have you eaten?
You know what? Who the fuck are you to judge me?
Yeah, I've probably eaten paste, so why not?
For the longest time, they only came out in those variety packs that you get around Halloween. That had maybe like 2 or 3 of those flavored Tootsie Rolls. Alongside a bunch of chocolate stuff. And I'll never forget the first time I found that they had started releasing those fruit-flavored Tootsie Rolls in separate bags of just them, and I bought like 9 of them and just hoarded them because I was afraid that they were going to go away. Another one that I was always really excited to get was, do you remember those giant sweet tarts? The big like disc ones? Yeah, I used to love those because they were actually chewy and didn't have like the texture of chalk like regular sweet tarts did. So those were probably my favorite Halloween candies. Do they even still make those disc sweet tarts anymore? I haven't seen them.
Do.
I think so.
Maybe.
I don't think they're in Canada, but definitely in the U.S.
Yeah, I haven't seen them in years. Okay, and let's see here now. Next question here. This one comes from Mark, and he asked, "What are some of our favorite Halloween specials, like special Halloween themed TV episodes or shorts or something like that?" So, Birdman, let's start with you on this one. What's your favorite Halloween special?
Favorite Halloween special is, I'm a big fan of the Community ones that used to be. That was like a sitcom that ran on NBC for a while. But to go even further back, the Roseanne ones were really good. Favorite animated, there are 2. There's the Grinch Halloween Night one, which is really good, if a little strange. because there's some really fucked up imagery in that. The other one is, I can't remember the name, but I know it's Hanna-Barbera. Leonard Nimoy's in it as a voice, and I think it's called The Halloween Tree, and it was on Cartoon Network a lot in the early aughts.
Holy
And,
shit, I thought I was the only one who remembered the Halloween tree. I saw it like once in the 90s, and then it just disappeared.
Yeah, it's really well animated. And it's pretty kick-ass. And then, actually, full disclosure here, I've never seen the Charlie Brown one. The Great Pumpkin one.
You've never seen It's a Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown?
No, surprisingly, actually.
That needs to be fixed, like, immediately. That's your homework. Watch It's a Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, and write me a 50-word essay on it.
All right.
All right, Kat, what about you? Favorite Halloween specials?
Are we talking about just like Hocus Pocus kind of stuff, or are we talking about like, here's a TV show and it had a Halloween episode? Because if that's the case, I don't know. I feel like a lot of the stuff I watched didn't have Halloween episodes because I watched a lot of anime and that's not really a thing there. But if I had to pick something, and I think we've talked about this before, but Buffy.
Yes.
Buffy had excellent Halloween episodes because it's already a really spooky show that has a lot of supernatural stuff in it already. And then you add in all of the extra weirdness of the Halloween episodes, and they were always just so wonderful. Just delightful episodes because they just get weirder than normal.
Okay. Well, for me, It's a Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown is always a tradition for me to watch around Halloween. And then I know that the show in general is just a shadow of what it once was in terms of quality, but I'll tell you what always has a special place in my heart. I will always make time to watch the yearly Simpsons Treehouse of Horror specials.
Yeah,
because
agreed.
those have always been really just creative and hilarious, and I always love the Simpsons Halloween episodes. As far as dedicated Halloween specials, ones that I really remember enjoying from when I was a kid, like you mentioned, the Halloween tree. I saw that once, and then like the thing is like I must have been like the only person who saw it because it never aired again that I saw, and no one else I talked to ever remembered it. So I thought that it was, for 3 years, I thought it was like so many things in my life, just a hallucination on my part. And then let's see, there was one that there was do you guys remember the Goosebumps TV series?
Oh god, yeah, that was filmed not far from me, actually.
Yeah. There was an episode that was actually set during Halloween, where these kids were following around these two tall pumpkin masked figures, and they're basically forcing them into like an endless trick or treating loop. And the thing that I remember, the one thing I don't like about that episode was the twist ending at the end, because Goosebumps always has a twist ending, where it's revealed that these two pumpkin mask figures are friends of a couple of the main kids, and they were playing a prank on the rest of their friends. But these two pumpkin mask figures are actually aliens who eat people, and they're the ones who actually introduced Halloween to Earth to kind of fatten up their herd, so to speak. So
what?
Yeah. All right, sure.
That sounds like a thing.
Yeah. So it's up until the ending, it's a really great episode, and I really love that. God, I haven't watched Goosebumps in years. I remember it was running on Discovery Family for a long time, but I never bothered to tune into it. So I need to kind of pick that up again. All right, and let's see here now. Okay, here's a good one. Here's one I'm kind of looking forward to. This one comes from Sam, and it's a question for all of us. And he asks, "What's the most creative Halloween costume you've ever seen?" And I'm going to open with this one because this is something that I thought was just totally cool. So I think I mentioned on the show that I used to deliver pizza for Domino's, and I always worked Halloween because you made bang money that night from people ordering pizzas for Halloween parties. I took a delivery to a house that was hosting a party, and this kid who was like 10 years old, remember, he was wearing jeans, a blue hoodie, and he had all these "Hello, my name is" name stickers all over his hoodie. And he walked up to me and he asked what my name was, and I told him. And he wrote it down on one of the stickers and he stuck it on his hoodie. And I was like, "What the heck are you doing?" He said, "Oh, it's my costume. I'm identity theft."
Oh man.
And I was like, "You win Halloween. You're gonna get all the candy tonight." What about you, Kat? What's the most creative Halloween costume you've ever seen?
God, it's really hard to say because I've been around cosplayers for so long, and so my standards are a little bit different in terms of costuming. So nothing really stands out to me right now, except we have a costume contest at work every year, and there was one that won for most creative costume, and I don't know that it was the most creative thing in the world, but it was really cute. It was a husband and a wife that we have at my work had just had a little baby, and they came in dressed as hockey players because it's a hockey town here. So they came dressed up like one of them was a goalie, one of them was just another player on the Blues is our local hockey team. And they dressed their baby daughter up as the Stanley Cup. And I'm like, you know what? That's really cute. Like the just being a hockey player, no big deal. But like the fact that my coworker had gone out of her way to make like a little Stanley Cup costume for her baby. And we had not won the Stanley Cup yet. This was a few years ago. Oh, maybe it was like a premonition predicting the future that we would win the Stanley Cup.
You can send that baby to Toronto anytime.
Yeah. Oh, God. I thought that was really cute.
Okay, Birdman, what about you?
This I saw on Reddit, so I didn't see this with my own eyes, but somebody had a costume where they used LCD screens and a camera, so it looked like there was a hole in their chest, and you could see right through them.
I've seen that. Yeah, that was sick. That got passed around on Facebook a couple years ago. I remember that.
Yeah, I was like, oh my God, that's so creative. And something you wouldn't really think of unless you were a big tech nerd. To kind of go with Cat's story, I saw a baby costume. This has been passed around for years on Facebook and Twitter. There's a baby dressed as the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. And it's standing outside the Ghostbusters firehouse. You can see all the toys surrounding it. And it looks like the baby's attacking the Ghostbusters firehouse. That's my friend Dan Milano's kid.
Oh, so really?
I was like, your baby's famous. He's like, I know. So I thought that was pretty cool. He works for Nickelodeon. He's the guy who created Greg the Bunny. He's done stuff for like Robot Chicken. So he's a big dork and a big nerd. So I thought that was pretty win too.
Okay. Another creative one I saw. This is one that a coworker of mine trotted out a couple years ago. He came into work on a Halloween shift, and he had a miniature chalkboard hanging from around his neck, and he'd stuck a blue Twitter logo sticker in the top left corner. And every now and then he'd write, something like, Star Wars sucks, or I hate this, or whatever. And he would just kind of randomly change it every few minutes ago. And I finally couldn't figure out what he was doing. And I was like, So what is your costume supposed to be? And said, "Oh, I'm someone on Twitter who disagrees with you." So anyway, but that is all the Ask Geek questions that we have for this week. Thank you as always for sending them, and as always, you can send them to us through the email at drgonzo@nerdtothethirdpower.com. We love getting your questions, love reading them on the air. So get your questions in. You just might get your question read. And so with that, we're going to jump right into our discussion topic, which this year for Halloween, we're discussing supernatural horror, ghosts and demons and things that go bump in the night, and how that terrifies us and why. And so yeah, let's just kind of get right into it. So Kat, let's start with you on this one, because I know that there's a there's a particular bit about this that had you kind of just up on the ceiling when you went to see it the first time.
Ooh, what are we talking about?
A Paranormal Activity.
Paranormal Activity, yes. I was like, which one? So in terms
I figured we trotted out the koala story enough.
Oh Jesus, yes, we have trotted out the koala story enough. I in terms of horror, I don't usually enjoy like the monster films or the the gore horror, whatever you call it, torture porn kinds of horror. I don't like masked killers or any of that. That shit doesn't interest me. I really like a slow burn paranormal horror film. Some spooky ghost haunting a place, and then bam at the end. That's the kind of horror I enjoy. And when Paranormal Activity came out, I did go see it in theater. It did scare the shit out of me. Like, you knew it wasn't real. And mostly I was nauseous the whole time because shaky cam makes me so sick. But I didn't sleep that night either. So, but that's the kind of stuff I enjoy. Not necessarily the found footage thing, but just like the slow burn, the slowly introducing the paranormal elements, and then the audience knows, but the cast doesn't. And I find that stuff more entertaining. I like that, the creeping aspect of it. So one of my favorite horror movies, oh my God, I just blanked on the name of it. Hold on. The Conjuring. There we go. I found it. One of my favorite horror movies that's come out recently has been The Conjuring, which they made way too many spin-offs of, and I don't care about any of the sequels or spin-offs, just that first one. Partially because it's supposed to be based on a true story that, brings in an element of, ooh, this really happened, in quotation marks, of course, but mostly just the way that film was set up, that it's going to be haunting. You see the little things, and you see how those little things are being ignored and passed off as something totally innocent or normal, and then you watch it build into something horrible, and that to me is just really good entertainment.
Okay, Birdman, what about you? Some of your favorite paranormal horror stories.
I'm gonna go with Kat here. I'm a big fan of the James Wan Conjuring movies, especially the first two, because they do a great job with atmospheres and them being based on the real life experiences of Ed and Lorraine Warren, paranormal investigators. One based on the Amityville house, another one based on the Sheffield, England haunting. I thought they were remarkably well done because they didn't give you a monster. You only saw things very briefly. A lot of it was left up to the imagination, a lot of tension building, a lot of atmosphere, a lot of you don't necessarily know where the scare is going to come from. And the problem with that franchise is it became a franchise. The Conjuring, I hate this phrase, the Conjuring universe opened up when they introduced Annabelle. And Annabelle in the first movie was, hey, here's a creepy doll, it's a haunted object, don't fucking touch it. And it was left more or less as, here's a plot device we may or may not use, but it's meant to be, spooky and shit. Annabelle, the first one, is boring as shit, nothing happens. Annabelle creation is hilarious because Annabelle actually kills people. And Annabelle Comes Home is the best of the spin-offs, and that's not a bar that's set particularly high. The Nun, spooky atmosphere, but does nothing. Curse of Il Llorona, holy shit. Just avoid it. But to talk about the stuff that I do like, there's a movie. It's about a haunted house, and it's a weird one. I think it features the guy from The Greatest American Hero, and Norm from Cheers. It's a movie called House. It got a release from Arrow Video this summer or the summer before last. It's about a guy writing about his experiences in Vietnam, and his mother died in this house. And it's just about all the weird shit that happens over the course of this movie. And his son goes missing at one point in the movie. It's weird, but it's surprisingly fun. Another movie that I really like, and this one should probably come as no surprise, is the Tobe Hooper movie produced by Steven Spielberg, Poltergeist. A classic, and it kind of made horror accessible to the masses. It wasn't Wes Craven's A Nightmare on Elm Street, nor was it Sean Cunningham's Friday the 13th. It wasn't a slasher, and it wasn't something like a slow burn, like Kat likes spooky movies. So it wasn't like The Changeling or The Entity, or even another lesser-known horror movie called Ghost Story, which if you can track down is really good. It's slow, but it's really decent. And yeah, Poltergeist I liked because it kind of gave that Hollywood shine to horror. We're showing that you could do something scary without showing blood and gore. You could show a monster without going over the top Tom Savini special effects. Stuff like that.
That movie haunts me to this day. No shit. I saw that movie when I was probably way too young, and the visuals of it and a lot of the content of it have just messed me up for my entire life.
I mean, horror is one of those horror is one of those genres that I'm a huge fan of. I mean, one of the things we did recently on Twig is I spoke with a director. You may have heard of this. There's a documentary called In Search of Darkness, which looks at the 80s as a very big prime time in horror because a lot of directors would take risks with things. You got the creature features, the slashers, the gore stuff, but not like Hostel, where it was torture porn for the sake of the suffering. It wasn't the creative kills of Tom Savini or Tom Woodruff or Rick Baker's creative makeup effects, nor would you get people coming up to the industry like Greg Nicotero, stuff like that. And it was kind of cool just seeing the different horror movies that existed in the 80s and kind of getting a view through it. Another movie that I like, it's about a haunted house, but it kind of has a creature in it. In essence, it's about killer dolls, but the house is possessed that makes the dolls come alive. I think the movie came out in 86. It's done by Stuart Gordon. It's called Dolls, the same guy who did Reanimator, which if you've seen that movie, boy, were you in for a treat. It's weird, but it's really good, and it's lesser known. It got a release from Shout Factory under their Scream Factory label a couple of years ago. I'm trying to think of what else I can talk to you about. I'm actually just looking through the movies I have downloaded on my computer or have on my horror movie shelf right now that I can really kind of talk about. Because I get where Kat's coming from, because certain horror movies, they kind of reduce the scares to where's the knifed maniac going to come from next. And that's not always the best way to do a scare. The best way, in my opinion, is to build it up over a while, to let tension build, to let the atmosphere bring music and sound design, creative shots. Let things come to a slow boil until it's eventually too late and something comes out and gets you and you have no chance to escape. That's the type of scares that I love. I haven't been scared by a horror movie since it's a more recent title, but It Chapter 2. I saw that in theaters 2 months ago or last month or whatever. Yeah, that actually legitimately had me scared at one point. I actually got a good jump out of it at one point because it was masterfully done. Yeah, so Billy, why don't you pick up the ball here, and then I'll pick up wherever you want me to go next.
Well, the horror movies in general, I think I mentioned this on the show many times. Horror movies in general don't tend to do it for me. The only one that is consistently scary to me, even to this day, is my favorite horror movie, the original Alien, but that's not germane to this conversation. Horror video games, on the other hand, have really done a lot in the last 20 years or so to really explore supernatural horror. And actually, two of my favorite horror games ever actually deal with supernatural horror. And those are Fatal Frame 2, Crimson Butterfly, and Silent Hill 2. And Fatal Frame 2... I think I mentioned this also on the show. It's one of the games in my collection that I've never been able to finish just because it freaks me out so much. So for those who aren't familiar with the Fatal Frame series, it's a series of Japanese horror games, which that alone should tell you how fucked up things are, because Japanese horror in general is just totally fucked up. It's just I don't know what's going on over there, but like every time someone recommends something to me that's from Japan and isn't the horror genre, I'm like, nope, I need to be able to sleep for the next 6 years. But it deals with this village, this remote Japanese village that's haunted by ghosts, and your only defense against these hostile spirits is this camera that you have to go into first person view and let these spirits get as close as possible before snapping their picture. And it's filled with all the hallmark Japanese horror tropes, the creepy ass music, the weird ass bodily contortions, and just it's imagine basically playing through a video game where every enemy is Samara from The Ring, and you'll have Fatal Frame 2. And it's one of the few horror games I play that I've never been able to finish just because it freaks me out so badly. And Silent Hill 2 I really enjoy because much like Birdman and Cat, I like the horror that is kind of slow building, but I also like the kind of horror where the more you think about it, the more terrifying it becomes. And Silent Hill 2 does that really well, particularly in one section of the game where you're in the Silent Hill Historical Society, which, if you want a breakdown of why that's such an effective segment of the game, there's a YouTube channel called Stop Skeletons from Fighting, and they did a breakdown of that segment of the game that if you want a masterclass in how to do video game horror, that right there is required viewing. But one of the points that they don't touch on in that video, and something that just kind of occurred to me as I was playing through Silent Hill 2 the last time, was you enter the Historical Society. It's just this little building on the street, and you just enter through the front door. And then for the rest of the time you're in this segment of the game, you're moving downwards. You're either going downstairs or climbing down ladders or jumping down holes, and you just keep going further and further underground. I think somebody finally calculated the final distance underground that you go, and it came out to like half a mile or something. And then when you finally exit the Historical Society, you're back on ground level outside of this little tiny building, but at no point have you ever made any upward movement. You've just been going down the whole time, and yet somehow you're back on ground level. So you just somehow warped from a half mile underground to being back on ground level. And just when that occurred to me, I was just like, wow, this is that just adds the creepiness factor even more to this segment of the game. Just the fact that just that reality warping. And I absolutely love that kind of horror where the more you think about it, the more disturbing it becomes. And Silent Hill 2 does that really well. So I guess now the question that I want to ask is, what is it about the supernatural horror that kind of fascinates us, and why we're sort of drawn to it? So, Kat, let's start with you. What is it about supernatural horror that really kind of grabs your attention?
I don't know why I enjoy it more than other forms of horror, but I think it's probably to do with the fact that it is so difficult to quantify. When I think about other horror things that we've talked about, like werewolves or vampires, we get them from literature or from movies, and we have rules, and we know how to deal with these entities because we have rules. Or like if there's a masked killer kind of thing, we know that that's a person, and even if we're scared, we realize that's just a person. That's a crazy person. He's a bad person. But with like supernatural horror, when you get into demons and poltergeists and ghosts and stuff, we are getting into a realm that we only pretend that we really understand or know how to deal with. It's such a malleable form of horror, because you can do anything. I mean, you could do anything. Every different culture's form of horror based around ghosts and spirits everybody's is different, and there's no like one solution for it. There's no silver bullet or stake through the heart or whatever for a solution. And it's also something that I think it's easier to believe and disbelieve at the same time. There's so many people in the world who do believe in ghosts. We don't believe in werewolves, and we don't believe in the paranormal. Like, we don't believe in vampires and stuff like that, but we believe in ghosts, generally speaking, as a society. We believe in that. We might even believe in demons, and a lot of the basis for our beliefs in these things is rooted in religion, and a lot of the world is religious. So these things come, I think, a little more naturally to us, but it makes it feel even more difficult to grasp, if that makes any sense at all.
So it's sort of the ultimate unknown, I guess.
Yeah, it's like we don't do a lot of movies about deep sea creatures because we don't actually know shit about deep sea creatures. The bottom of the ocean is probably the most terrifying place on the planet, but for lack of that, we'll take ghosts because that's still easier to deal with. But yeah, it's an unknown because we don't know what happens. We don't really know what happens after we die. We have an idea of what happens after we die, or we think hell or heaven might exist or might not exist, but we don't know. We can't quantify it. We can't calculate it. It's something that science cannot deal with. And so it's just something that we're like on the edge of it at all times. It's just something that it's like just out of our reach. And it's kind of like it could, and that's one of those things that it could happen to anybody at any time. Death is universal, and almost everybody has a culture that involves ghosts and spirits and stuff, and they're so prevalent in our own history. Like, of course, werewolves and vampires and serial killers and stuff have always existed, pretty much for as long as most cultures give a shit. But like the lengths that we have gone to prove that they do or don't exist. Like, it doesn't take much to disprove vampires, but there's like ghost hunting shows to try and prove that ghosts exist. And then when you think back to like, I guess it was the 1800s when the Fox sisters were big and mesmerism was huge, and people were looking for a way to talk to spirits and harness the power of spirits and stuff like that. I mean, like, we have gone to such lengths to understand it, and we're nowhere closer to it than we were hundreds of years ago.
Sorry, I put myself on mute. All right. All right, Birdman, what about you? What is it about supernatural horror that draws your attention?
The thing that draws me to supernatural horror is I'm chasing experiences I've already had. I've seen and experienced paranormal activities both as a child, as an adult, and as a professional. What do I mean by that? As a kid, I've seen some things that scared the shit out of me. As an adult, I chased at it with equipment, with cameras, with microphones, with audio types of stuff. As a professional, I've looked at it using my college education in video and audio, and there are things I cannot explain through science and otherwise. And the reason I like that particular genre of movies is I want to relive that. I want to know what I experienced happened to me. I want to be able to grasp that fear. Not much scares me in life. Even when I was on the operating table, when I lost my leg 2 years ago, I could have died. That didn't scare me. I was prepared to die. But when I saw my first ghost, when I was probably about 10, my fucking heart stopped. My blood ran absolutely cold. And I've never ran so fast in my life. And then I shared that experience moments later with about 5 or 6 other people in the room as we watched a ghost walk across a living room and made audible sounds. I hid behind the couch. Actually, would you like me to tell the story in full?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Okay, so my uncle, he had a wife previously, and she unfortunately passed away. She died in the house that my uncle was still living in. So it's the night before my uncle's wedding to his new wife. His wife's been gone maybe a year or two. So I'm downstairs playing Nintendo. I remember this. It was early evening at the latest, so it's not dark at all. So I'm playing Nintendo. I decide I want to go upstairs and get a drink or something to eat. And my uncle has these stairs, so I stop as I'm going up the stairs, and I just feel a presence in the room. I'm the only one downstairs. I turn around, and I can see this black mist pooling in the middle of the floor, like an unnatural just form of black mist. And it forms into the shape of a person. I look at it. I don't scream. I run. So I run upstairs. I run through the kitchen, run into the dining room and into the living room. My mom or my grandmother's there. Uh, my aunt Jackie, who was my uncle's new wife to be. Um, some other cousins, and I think my uncle himself. So I hide behind the couch and I'm like, Grandma, Mom, something's coming. She's like, what are you talking about, Mike? What? And my aunt, the one who passed away, used to wear these heavy wooden shoes, like how you'd see nurses wear. And the dining room was hardwood floor. And after I came out of the dining room, I hid behind the couch, as I said. There's another set of footsteps walking through the kitchen. Everybody in that house is in that room at that moment. So we hear the steps walking across the dining room floor. And all of us turn our heads and see this black shape with a veil across their face. It's clearly a woman's shape. It looks like my Aunt Mary. Walks down the hallway. Goes down the hallway, turns left into the bathroom where she had the heart attack, and then goes into the bedroom where she then later passed away. My grandmother gets up, stands up, and goes, Mary? And as soon as she says that, the black spirit, or whatever it was, disappears. And all of us look at each other. And we're quiet for about a minute. And my grandmother goes, you all saw that, right? We all just kind of nod our heads. And nobody spoke about it. But we saw that on the night before my uncle was to get married again.
Ooh,
yeah,
creepy.
I'm actually kind of shaking. So either my blood sugar's low or I scared the shit out of myself.
We'll eat some Halloween candy and then.
Yeah. I can think of another story too, and this may be in the same vein of supernatural. This is a story I posted on Facebook a couple of weeks ago. I'm maybe 19 at the time. My girlfriend is 16. She has a car. We're driving around. And I live near a place called Owen Sound. And there's a place called Irish Block, which is on the back concession. It's in the middle of nowhere. It's nowhere country. Just backwoods and back roads. Very isolated, very alone. So late one night, we decide, hey, why don't we go out for a drive? Let's go out to Irish Block. I hear it's haunted. I hear something strange is back there. So we go back, and we've got the windows down. It's a nice summer night. It's a warm night. But we're driving back there, and as we start twisting back to the back roads, it's almost as if the darkness itself is getting more and more intense, surrounding the car, as if it was almost given form. And we start to hear something in the woods. We're not quite sure what it is. Like, the radio's off. All we can hear is the engine and the car on the road. But something's back there. We start hearing something rushing through the woods, as if something's running at us. And we start driving, and whatever it is, it's keeping pace with us. So we're twisting and turning. We don't know where we are. We don't know where we are fucking going. And I look at her, and I'm like, Ashley, we got to get out of here. We got to get out of here fucking now. And she's driving. She's like, Michael, I'm trying. So eventually, we just hear this unnatural howl. It wasn't human. It wasn't animal. I don't know what it was. I can't tell you what it was. But I'll tell you this. We got to the edge of the concession, the edge of the bush. And we got out, and there's a lone light. Like a traffic light or something. And we get to it. And whatever it was just stops following us. And then the skies and the darkness just seems normal. It's another warm summer night. But we never went back after that. Something wanted us out of there. I can't tell you what it was. But I'll tell you, it wasn't fucking human. And it never was. So that's my experience.
Ooh. Okay, all right.
That reminds me of a lot of stories because I like to do this to myself. I like to read scary supernatural stories. And if you've ever read about like Wendigos, like any
Yeah.
Native American stories about Wendigos and like people who have seen things, that shit will keep you up for weeks. That's what your story reminded me of, is some of those kinds of stories.
Well, that's what somebody said on my Facebook. They're like, that sounds like a Wendigo. And I thought I was alone in this experience, but then another person that I grew up with said, yeah, my car broke down back there one night during the winter when she was younger. And she's like, yeah, I heard something too.
God.
So I feel a little bit vindicated that I wasn't alone.
Well, did I ever tell you about the time me and a group of friends broke into and spent the night in an abandoned asylum?
God, why would you do that? But no, please go ahead.
Yes, please share.
Okay, so this was back in, I want to say, 2006. So I'd been out of high school for a couple of years. And me and a group of friends, one of my friends was real big into, like, you know, haunted places and you know, the paranormal and all that weird ass crazy shit. And he found this condemned asylum out in Western Maryland. And so he got me and a group of our friends to go out there, and we broke into the place was condemned. It was actually getting ready to be torn down, so that's why we decided to go out there, because we wanted to just give it one last kind of haunting through before it got torn down and replaced with, like, I don't know, an apartment complex or something. I don't fucking remember. So we broke in and we spent the we bunkered down and made camp in what we thought was the cafeteria. And just the whole night, you know, it was God, it was like this couldn't have been any more of the stereotypical you know, haunted hospital. Like, there were, you know, rotted away wheelchairs and rusty hospital beds still, you know, kind of overturned in the occasional room, and it was just, oh God, it was like something out of like Silent Hill or Resident Evil or something. And the whole night that we're in there, now, full disclosure, at the time that we did this, I think I mentioned this on the show before, but I have occasional bouts of insomnia. I'll go for, like, you know, a few days where I just won't sleep, and I was kind of in the middle of one of these bouts, so I don't know how much of this was actually happening, how much it was just my sleep-deprived brain playing tricks on me. But throughout the night, I could swear that I would hear, like, footsteps or something banging, you know, from the floor above us or down the hall. Or occasionally I'd hear, like, some kind of, you know, hear like a voice or something, somebody whispering. That last one I chalked up to just, you know, Charlie being a dick, because that's the kind of guy Charlie was. You know, but I would hear just these weird noises that I just could not account for. And, you know, finally about like 3 o'clock or so, you know, we were all like, okay, you know, let's just kind of just get some sleep, and, you know, we'll be out here in the morning. But again, insomnia, couldn't sleep, and I'm sitting up in my sleeping bag, and I'm looking down the hallway, and I see this, you know, it was just an empty hallway, and I turned away from it to kind of, you know, check the time on my cell phone, and then when I look back the hallway, there's this humanoid figure that wasn't there before, and it's just standing there. And it was all in silhouette. Its back was, there was a window at the end of the hallway, and its back was to the window, so the light from, you know, the moon was kind of just was to its back, so I couldn't make out, you know, the figure. I just saw this humanoid silhouette, but it looked like it was wearing a gown, like it looked like it was wearing like a hospital gown, based on the silhouette, and I just fucking lost. I'm like, guys, we got to get out of here now. We got to go. And they're like, no, Gonzo, what's going on? What's again? Guys, I saw something. There's somebody here with us. And they were looking down I pointed down the hallway, and the figure wasn't there anymore. And they were like, dude, you've gone nuts. You're seeing stuff. And I was like, no, we got to get out of here. If we don't get out of here now, we're not going to live to see daylight. So we were just so. Finally, you know, Rick, the guy who was running the expedition, he was like, okay, look, you know, he's right. We do kind of have to get out of here, because what he probably saw was a police officer patrolling the grounds, making sure that there's nobody in here. So yeah, we should probably go so that we don't, like, get fucking arrested. And even though I kept on, it didn't look like a cop. It looked like somebody. It looked like a patient. So we packed up our stuff and we got the hell out of there. And then a couple weeks ago, I was talking with Rick and we were just kind of chilling out, and this topic of conversation turned to that old asylum. And he was like, yeah, I did some, research in that place after we left. And it turned out that there was actually more than a few lawsuits leveled against the place for patient abuse and patients dying due to neglect or abuse at that place. So, who knows? You might have seen a vengeful spirit wondering why these college kids were disturbing its rest. And I was like, I really could have lived quite happily not hearing that. Thank you. So yeah, that's the closest I've come to an actual paranormal experience. So yeah, what about you, Kat? You have any encounters with anything that goes bump in the night?
Well, I will spare you the story of the very last and permanently last time I ever used a Ouija board. Don't do that, kids.
Now I'm curious.
See now that you can't just drop that on us and then leave us hanging. You got to tell us.
No, I really don't. I'm not going to talk about. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I'll say this when it comes to Ouija boards. I've always been told by any of my friends who consider themselves psychic or mediums, don't do it. And the piece of advice I've always been told is, don't call up what you can't put down.
Yeah, that was very much the experience. So don't do Ouija boards or drugs. Don't do Ouija boards. But I will say I have a friend who I'm very good friends with, and she's probably personally very, very haunted. And she told us one time about all the night terrors that she gets, and it's always the same thing. So you could chalk it up to just being night terrors. But I was over at her house one time, and she, we were just hanging out, and we were in the basement of her house, just chilling, hanging out, watching some anime. And I kept looking out of the corner of my eye because I kept thinking that I saw something. And it was just like, there was just like a shadow in the corner of my eye, just like a small little something, always at the corner of my eye. And I'm doing this for like an hour, thinking that she's got a cat over there or something, and there's nothing. There's nothing over there. And finally, my friend sees me and is like, "What's up?" And I was like, "Oh, nothing. I thought I saw something." And she's like, "Oh, don't worry about that one." And I was like, "That one?" Meaning there's more than one, and I should worry about one of them, but not this one. Like, I was goddamn unnerved.
Pardon me, I have questions. Many questions, all of the questions, urgent
I have
questions.
Several questions about the building I am currently in and why I should not worry about that one. It was like telling the story is really funny, and I wasn't like scared at the time or anything, but it occurs to me that that's a really goddamn weird situation to be in. It's just, don't worry about that one. And she's got a million stories, and I really don't have anything substantial to recall. You know what? No, fuck it. I don't want to say my old house was haunted, but my parents would constantly come to me and say, "You left your radio on." And I never left my radio on. Like, my electronics in my bedroom turned themselves on all the goddamn time. And it wasn't like a surge protector needed, something like that. No, it was like, I had this old alarm clock that was a radio alarm clock, and you had to like really move the buttons in order to get it to flip from alarm to radio to whatever. Like, the button was like kind of hard and got stuck a lot, and there was just no way that this thing was moving and turning itself on and off. But I was very good about my alarm because I hated my alarm and I didn't want to ever hear it. So it's not like I was just, and it was a shitty radio. So it's not something I'd listen to the radio on. I had a stereo for that. So the fact that it kept turning itself on was so weird to me, and I would get in trouble. Which is kind of a pisser. But like, and it was especially like the last few years that I lived in that house. And as far as I know, nothing weird ever happened in that house. But it was like the last year or two that I lived there, that happened more and more frequently. Probably in conjunction with the use of a Ouija board in the place. So don't do that.
I had an experience with my Xbox one time. It just flipped on by itself, and I got kind of flipped out. But no, turns out it was downloading an update.
No. See,
So,
isn't that weird? But it's crazy how each one of us, there's 3 of us here, and each one of us has experienced something that we cannot explain.
Well, I mean, in fairness, I may have just been hallucinating because I have actually gotten to the point in my insomnia bouts where actually your brain actually does start to hallucinate. Ask me sometime to tell you about the time in high school that I had a salamander, a sombrero wearing salamander named Sergey who would extol me the virtues of Marxist communism.
Well, that does sound like something for another episode.
Yep.
And you get insomnia. I get exploding head syndrome. If you've never heard of that, it's not as bad as it sounds. But it does cause you to hear sounds that aren't there, like as you're falling asleep. So it could be like the sound of a freight train coming through your place. Like, I hear weird noises all the time, and I realize it's because of exploding head syndrome. But, like, man, I hear some weird shit sometimes.
You want to know what the most common form of that is? Hearing someone calling your name when no one is actually doing so.
Oh, that's too fucking freaky. I've never heard anybody talk to me, I think.
I've had that happen. Actually, last year, I just got released from the hospital. I was in rehab hospital for most of January, then I got released. I'd come home. My real mother had died. My real mom, Kim, had died while I was in hospital. So I'd come home, and Blair, my wife, is at work. Nobody's in the apartment, and I'm very clear-headed. It's the middle of the day. I've just finished doing something on the computer. Ordinary circumstance. Clear as day. My mother's voice from down the hallway. Michael? And that's the only time I've ever heard that, was my mom's voice after she passed away.
Oh, fuck that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
And I've got tons of stories. Some that will probably unnerve you, but that's for next year.
Yeah.
I don't know. I still kind of want to hear Kat's Ouija board story.
No. I don't want to relive that. I really don't. But I just think it's really interesting. The reason why I like the paranormal stories more so than other forms of horror is because everyone has one. We all have a story that happened to us that we're pretty sure happened, but logically makes no sense, scientifically makes no sense, and we can't explain it. And if 3 out of 3 of us have a story, God knows if you go and talk to, like, say 10 of your coworkers, how many of them are going to have some sort of story they can't explain?
You know, can you know who I want to know if they have any really good stories? Skyblaze. I bet because she lives in the old country. I'm sure she's had more than a few.
I'm sure half of her swords are haunted.
So yes, but that's we're running a bit long here, so we got to kind of start wrapping things up. So I think we've like this kind of took a weird turn. We started talking about horror movies that we like. Now we're just talking about paranormal experiences that we've had. So let's open it up to you, the listeners. What's an encounter you've had with something that goes bump in the night, or what's a supernatural horror film or story that you really enjoy? You know what? Just go ahead and drop in the comments. You know, tell us a ghost story. Tell us your ghost story. What is an encounter that you've had, or just a story that you really enjoy telling?
Should we read some people's stories?
I would like to.
Okay, yeah. Drop your ghost story in the comments, or send it to us to the email. Same address as the Ask a Geek, drgonzo@nerdofthethird.power.com. And if we get some good ones, maybe we'll read them on the air, read them on the show.
That would be so cool. If you send it to us, please let us know that you're consenting to have it read on the podcast so that we know if it's okay.
Names have been changed to protect the innocent.
Oh my gosh.
All right. But so tell us your ghost stories. And so with that is all the time we have for Nerd of the Third Power this week. Thank you, Azar, for tuning in. Happy Halloween. We will see you guys in a couple weeks. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, I'm Dr. Gonzo.
I'm the cat.
I'm putting up my Christmas tree.
We'll see you guys later. Taka, play us out.
Putting up my Christmas.